Hello Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we'll be discussing the Toronto Raptors game against the Golden State Warriors. But before we do that, I want to talk more about the NBA draft. And if you've been following this channel, you'll know that I've been doing quite a few draft profiles. So if you want to take a look at some of the ones that I've already done, please look at the description because I have a list of all of the prospects that I've discussed on this channel, along with a link to all of the videos that they have been discussed in. So if you are interested in the Toronto Raptors and you think that there are some cool prospects and you want to get my thoughts on them, click on the description, the More button underneath the title, and there's a list of videos you can take a look at. But today we're going to be doing something slightly different. We're still going to be looking at the NBA draft, but instead of looking at all of the first round picks that the Toronto Raptors would have access to with their first overall pick, which is probably going to be in the top 10 of this year's draft, we're going to be looking at the second round. The Toronto Raptors have been pretty successful recently with second round picks. For example, Jamal Shead, one of the guys who has been a huge surprise this season, was selected in the second round, and the Toronto Raptors scouting has been on point with a lot of the prospects that they brought in, and I want to discuss some of those second round picks right now. We're going to be looking at 4 guys that I think have a lot of potential. And one thing to note about the second round, it's hard to predict who the players are going to be that are going to be available in the second round, because guys can go higher than usual, guys can go lower than usual, they can drop. And a lot of the time, the best prospects that are going to be available at the pick that you have are going to be guys that have fallen out of the first round. And one thing to note is that the Toronto Raptors don't have their own second round pick this year, but they do have Portland's second round pick, and they are probably going to be drafting around the 40 to 44 range in this year's draft. So you have to take a look at some of the guys who will fall out of the first round. This happened in last year's draft when one of the players that I thought that the Toronto Raptors should take a chance on, Kyle Filipowski, dropped out of the first round and ended up available at the Toronto Raptors' 31st overall pick. They were selecting with the Detroit pick, and they had an opportunity to draft Kyle Filipowski, and they chose Jonathan Mogbo. And I'm not too down on Jonathan Mogbo, but it really seems as though Filipowski is going to be a pro at the NBA level. He's looked very good this year. So that's the kind of thing that you should be looking out for in the second round, are guys that have fallen down the draft board and might be available at the pick that your team will be selecting at. So we're going to be taking a look at guys who maybe are mocked within the late first round, the early second round, and kind of hoping that one of these guys is going to fall to the Toronto Raptors where they can select them. So we're going to start off with one of those players, and that is Carter Bryant. And Carter Bryant is a 19-year-old Arizona freshman. He is a forward who is 6'8". He is a really cool player, very athletic, moves around like a wing, really has good foot speed and fluidity in his motion. He has impressive hops. He can dunk the ball really easily, good length, good wingspan. And I think he really has a ton of potential, a lot of defensive potential especially. He has good instincts. He can play in the passing lanes. He can help out at the rim. He can guard players on the perimeter. He looks like he has a very high upside on the defensive end. Another interesting thing about him is that he's shooting 36% from 3, and this is on okay volume, and he is mostly catching and shooting. He is spotting up, and one of the things that you should look out for, and I'm always on the lookout for, is the free throw percentage, and his isn't very good. It's at 67% from the free throw line, so this might be something that is kind of an aberration. I don't know if you can expect him to be a great three-point shooter at the next level, at least early on. But I think that there is potential there from a shooting perspective. He looks like he could be a high-level role player at the next level, and he looks like he might have some potential with the ball in his hands as well, although I don't want to project too much there because he is still pretty raw on the offensive end. That said, I think he has really high upside. Right now on Arizona, he is playing a limited role on offense, low usage, very low, and he's being used mostly as a floor spacer, a cutter, a connector, that kind of thing. And I think that if the Toronto Raptors pick him, they're going to have to put some time and effort into developing him on the offensive side of the ball. But I think that he has a lot of upside on defense. And I'd be really jazzed if the Raptors were able to grab this guy in the second round. Next up, we're going to look at JP Toppin. JP Toppin is another 19-year-old, but he is a sophomore and he attends Texas Tech. He is a forward, although more of a big than Carter Bryant, who is kind of more of a wing. JT Toppin is 6'9". He is the younger brother of Obi Toppin, who has been a guy that I've kept my eye on over the past couple of years as a potential, Raptor because of his shooting ability and offensive upside. JT Toppin is a little different, although he's a similar height to his brother. He is more of a traditional power forward. He has really good touch around the rim. He has good footwork. He is a very good rebounder. They are giving him tons of reps. He is extremely productive and has a very high usage at this level. Especially as a sophomore, he has a usage of 32%. So when he's on the floor, they are going to him a lot. And he has rewarded them by scoring very efficiently, mostly in the post, mostly off of lobs, catching the ball deep in the post and being able to score with his great touch and footwork. One of the things about him is that although he is very productive, in terms of what he's able to do with rebounding and scoring on the inside, he doesn't really have the other skills that a lot of NBA scouts are looking for these days. For example, three-point shooting and playmaking, especially at the forward spot. Those are two big things that myself and other scouts are looking for when you're looking at a player who is maybe not quite a true center. You want to see the things that give them superior upside. So passing, the ability to read a defense and make plays from the forward position, that's big. Three-point shooting is another thing. I think that he has more upside as a potential shooter than as a playmaker. He doesn't average many assists, especially for his high usage rate, but right now his shooting isn't great and his shot is pretty slow. So you'd have to develop that, although he does have good touch and a decent free throw percentage of 70%. Again, he is more of a big than a wing. He is not an elite athlete, but at 40 and up, I think that he has a good base of skills. He's a pretty good defender and he's just very productive. I think that he would be a good get in the early 40s. Next up, we're going to be looking at another Duke player. Gosh, Duke is extremely deep. And there is a player that I like in the second round who is Isaiah Evans. And Isaiah Evans is a 19-year-old Duke freshman. He has really good size for his position because he is a shooting guard who is 6'7", and he has nice length. And the thing to like about him is the shooting. Good golly, he is a very good shooter. He's shooting 44% from three and he's 81% from the free throw line. He can come off screens and hit shots. He moves around the court and hunts his shot aggressively. He is always trying to create space for himself to shoot the ball, and he has really good touch on his shot. So he can get off and make difficult shots around the perimeter. He does not need to be set. He has a very good looking stroke. It's very high, it's very smooth, it's very quick. I think that he has a ton of upside as a shooter. And I think that just based on his shooting, his length and size and sort of fluidity of movement, I think that he has a high upside on offense. The unfortunate thing for him is that he's right now kind of a one-trick pony. He doesn't have the secondary or tertiary skills, so the passing, rebounding, defense, that kind of thing that you would want from a starting caliber player. That said, he is very young right now, but it doesn't seem like he has a ton of upside in that regard. He is right now a play finisher rather than a playmaker, i.e. they are passing him the ball and he is either shooting or trying to score inside. His defense is a question mark. That might be something that you need to coach him up at the next level. But here's the thing. There's a double-edged sword going on here. So in terms of the shooting, maybe you could project that he's not as good a shooter as you would think, just based on the fact that Duke is extremely stacked and loaded, and they are creating a ton of open looks for players on the perimeter. But on the other hand, the role that he's being given, which is as a shooter, maybe doesn't allow him to explore the other elements of his game, like being able to handle the ball and make plays for his teammates. So I think there's a bit of a double-edged sword going on there. I think he has a lot of upside as a shooter and as an offensive player. He could become a good scorer at the next level, especially if you're looking for somebody to come off the bench and bang shots. So he would be an interesting prospect and a guy I like at that Portland second-round pick. Last up, number 4 on the list is Sergio de Larrea. He is a Spaniard. He is 19 years old, and he is a point guard who is 6'7". So pretty intriguing prospect. He is mocked to go in the late first round, and I think this guy would be a huge get for the Toronto Raptors if they were able to select him in the second round. He plays for Valencia in Spain's top domestic league, so he is playing with men. He is not playing with boys, and he is doing a lot of impressive things at that level. For example, he is a really good three-point shooter. He's averaging 45% from three and 76% from the free throw line. That is very impressive. He's averaging 8 assists per 36 minutes. With that said, he is averaging 5 turnovers per 36 minutes, but that's still a positive assist to turnover ratio, sort of in the ballpark of 1.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio. Very impressive, 8 assists per 36 minutes. Another really good thing to like about him is size for position, which is, plus here. This is a 6'7" point guard who has guard skills, long arms. He is a kind of unicorn type prospect, a guy that really has a lot of potential because tall point guards allow you to configure your team a little differently. You can play them in different lineups. You can play them alongside a smaller guard who can play off of the ball. It gives you a lot of flexibility in your roster construction. So that's a nice thing to see. He is a really good pick and roll player. That is generally how he creates plays for other players. He's really good at finding the roll man. If they try and trap him, he'll find the roll man. If they allow him to get into the lane, he can kick it out. He is a creative passer. He basically has a good handle on the ball. He has good court mapping, good awareness. He's able to find players who are open. He is a point guard, and a good one. Right now, at his age, playing against men, as you would expect, his defense is not good. He is very skinny and slim. He fouls way too much, and he can get bullied. He is a kid, he's a teenager, he's playing against men. Defense is one of those things that generally gets better as you age, just because your body physically develops and you learn all of the tricks and ways that players try to exploit you as you get older. So I'm not too concerned about that, but it is something to consider. He has a good handle on the ball. He's not doing anything too fancy, but he is able to get where he wants to on the court, especially with a screen, and he's able to create plays for others. He's not super slow-footed like some European guards are. He has pretty good burst, and he can get into the lane past his man, especially with a screen. He has good footwork, and he's very patient with the ball once he gets into the lane and finds the correct play. Sometimes he scores, sometimes he's able to find other players for a pass. And I think that just generally he has a lot of upside, and I'd be super excited if he were able to drop to the second round where the Raptors are picking. And all 4 of these guys are mocked a little higher than where the Raptors currently are. And all of these guys are quite young with a lot of upside. And I think that if any of them were to fall to the Toronto Raptors, picking in that low 40 range, I'd be very happy. And those are some of the guys that I think the Toronto Raptors and you should keep a lookout for when the Toronto Raptors are able to draft in the second round this year. In any case, the Toronto Raptors played last night. It was a very exciting game. They played against the Golden State Warriors at 10 p.m., and it was worth staying up for. Unlike the game against the Phoenix Suns, where they really didn't play many of their starters or rotation players and got kind of crushed by the Suns, and it was just really not worth watching. This was a very exciting game. It was close the entire time. The starting lineup played very, very well with a lot of very encouraging performances from some of the top players. So why don't we get to some of the player evaluations? First, we're going to start with Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes had a magnificent game, 29 points on 11 of 16 shooting. He was 1 of 2 from 3, 6 of 8 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 block, 3 turnovers in 34 minutes. The Golden State Warriors do not have a lot of shot blocking. They're a pretty good defensive team, but one of the elements that they are missing is a presence on the inside. Most teams have a 7-footer standing in the paint who is able to use their physicality and their length to bother the shot of players who come inside the paint. And the Warriors don't really have that. And as a result, Scottie Barnes kind of had a field day against the Golden State Warriors. They really did not have an answer for him. He was able to get into the paint past his man and then, lay it up and in, or draw a foul, or create a play for somebody else. I think this was just a really, really good game that showed the correct process for Scottie Barnes. This is the way that you want him to play. Of course, it's tough for him to play like this every night because a lot of the time the other team is going to have those really intimidating shot blockers on the inside. But when they don't, this guy's got to live in the paint. And he did last night. A really good blend of what he should be doing. So from a process standpoint, 16 shots, two of them from three, totally fine with that. And then 8 free throws just because he was getting inside so often. And just making plays for others, playing great defense, grabbing rebounds. The defensive rebounding was very good, and I think just an excellent performance. Plus, he posterized Jonathan Kuminga right at the end of the game, which was really funny and awesome. But yeah, I think he had just a really sharp, really strong game. Next up, we will talk about Immanuel Quickley. This was a tough one between him and Jakob Poeltl because they both had really good games, but I will give it to Immanuel Quickley because he was kind of running the show on offense and doing so many fun, awesome things with the ball in his hands. He was splitting doubles. He was making highlight reel passes. He had a ton of really exciting dribbles in this game where he was able to break free of his defender and then either, score or create a really good shot opportunity for his teammates. So he had 21 points on 17 shots, so pretty efficient night. 3 of 7 from 3, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 0 blocks, 5 turnovers, and 3 fouls. But he had the ball on a string yesterday. His floater game was working. It looked really sharp. That is going to be a key shot for him because a lot of the time the other team will cut off the penetration to the basket and they'll run you off of the three-point line. So they take away the 2 best scoring opportunities. Those are the most efficient shots in the game, layups and three-point shots. So you got to have some other thing in your repertoire. And he has that floater and it was looking very good. And it's kind of a good kind of in-between shot where you're getting up there in terms of the efficiency of a layup. It's not quite a layup in terms of efficiency, but it's not as inefficient as a mid-range shot. And I think that if he can get that kind of floater game going, he's going to be a really talented scorer and going to really make Toronto's offense hum and look like it should. I thought it was a fantastic game from him from many, many different aspects. Defense, scoring, playmaking, three-point shooting. Really, really solid game from Immanuel Quickley. Next up, we got to go to the man in the middle, Jakob Poeltl. So these 3 guys, it was hard to pick between them for the best player of the game. They all had fantastic games. Jakob Poeltl, no different. 18 points on 9 shots. He missed 1 shot all night. He was perfect from the free throw line, 2 of 2 there. He had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, 2 turnovers in only 28 minutes. And a lot of people were criticizing him on social media because he was not coming out to contest Draymond Green's three-point shot. And this obviously was a scheme decision. This was something that was communicated to the team from above, from Darko Rajakovic, and I'm sure the defensive coordinator, Pat Delaney, who said basically we're going to live with Draymond Green shooting three-point shots. That's the scouting report. He is not a good three-point shooter, but he was really making them, especially in the first half. He was draining threes, where Jakob Poeltl would literally stand, give him a big cushion, and let him shoot. Because at the very beginning of the game, Draymond Green was able to drive past Poeltl, who was closed out, and after that point, I think the adjustment was made, or maybe he remembered the scouting report, and he played off of Draymond Green. And that's a decision. That is not something that you can say, well, it's his fault, that he did a bad job defending. This was what the game plan was. And of course, Draymond Green really had it going in the first half. He was banging shots, but then in the second half, the scheme started to pay off. So Draymond had 21 points on 18 shots, which isn't too bad, but he was 5 of 14 from 3. So the Raptors were just letting him shoot, and in the first half, he punished them. In the second half, the strategy kind of worked, and he cooled off quite a bit. And Other than that, Jakob Poeltl was extremely effective scoring the ball. He has great touch, great hands. He's able to catch balls that other centers are not. So Emmanuel Quickley hit him with a very difficult pass. He was able to collect it right at the rim and lay it in. He has just an amazing touch with layups and also great mitts where he's just able to grab the ball, hang on to it, and convert it into a shot opportunity. And if you've been watching the Raptors lately, they have a couple of bigs who are not very good at making those types of plays. So we'll talk about one of them, but first I want to talk about Ochai Agbaji. Ochai Agbaji did a really good job on defense last night. He and Jamal Shead were taking turns guarding Steph Curry off of the ball, and both of them did a good job of containing Curry, especially in the first half before he got injured, which, knock on wood, hope he's okay. Ochai Agbaji had 9 points on 4 of 6 shooting. He was 1 of 3 from 3, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, 2 turnovers, and he fouled out of the game, actually. So, he was giving a big effort on defense. I thought his defense was very good. I think that he is a good fundamental defensive player. He is a guy that is going to be able to stick with almost every perimeter player. Maybe he is not a guy who's going to, shut someone down, but he is very good at sticking with his man and making things just that much more difficult, and he did a really good job on Steph Curry. Next up, we're going to go to Jonathan Mogbo, and you know how I was giving Jakob Poeltl props about being able to catch balls and then finish on the inside with a very nice touch? Jonathan Mogbo is kind of the opposite of that. So we'll start with the negative first. He had 5 points on 5 shots, so not very efficient. He was 1 of 1 from the free throw line. 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, and 3 turnovers. His touch is an issue. And I think that unless he makes a quantum leap forward in this area, it looks like this is going to be a weakness of his. He is not able to convert point-blank layups. That's not a good sign. Hopefully it's a psychological thing. Hopefully it's not something where the touch is just completely poisoned and he isn't able to do that for his career. Hopefully it's something that he can work through. Because right now, if you're just blowing point-blank layups, you're not going to stick in the league. But other than that, so there's the negative, and it's a very big negative. Blowing layups, very bad. The positive, he makes plays. He does good stuff. He makes plays on both ends. So he had a couple of very impressive passes. One of them to Jakob Poeltl. It was a very nice tic-tac-toe play between Scotty, and Jakob Poeltl. And then on defense, he can move his feet and he can play defense on the perimeter while at the same time pitching in, helping out on the boards, and helping out with defense at the rim. So he had a really good possession where he was guarding Steph Curry at the end of a quarter, and he was able to stop Steph Curry. So that's very good. But again, all of that is not going to matter if he can't make a layup. So he's got to get better there. Off of the bench, we will start with, there were 2 really good bench players last night. We'll start with Jamal Shead. I thought Jamal Shead was fantastic. 11 points on 4 of 7 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3, great to see. 1 of 1 from the free throw line. He had 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, and yes, 5 turnovers. But I just love the way this guy plays. He was playing excellent defense on Steph Curry when he was in the game, face guarding him, staying with him, being a thorn in his side. That is something that you really need, especially when you're playing against a, elite off-ball player like Steph Curry. I'm not even going to say one of, the best off-ball player of all time. Maybe Kevin Durant. Okay? He doesn't need the ball in his hands to hurt you. And Jamal Shead got burned a couple of times just because it's Steph Curry. But other than that, he was really doing a good job of denying Steph Curry the basketball. And then on offense, the shooting was great. He banked in a 3 at the end of the game. That was pretty fun. But the 6 assists, even with the 5 turnovers, I think that he's a dog. He's a guy that is going to give you, at least something that you can hang your hat on at the end of the day. He plays on both sides of the ball. He runs the offense well. And when his shot is on, like it was last night, he looks like a really good player. Really, really happy with his game. And then the other guy who had a really good game was Jamison Battle. 14 points on 12 shots. He was 4 of 10 from 3. That's great to see. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 turnover. He had a really nice rebound in the first half where he was able to use his size and strength to just rip the ball away from Santos. I think he's impressing me. He's showing me different things. Maybe he's not the greatest defender, but he puts in an effort on that end. He is trying to pitch in different ways on the boards. And then on the offensive side of the ball, he had a couple of really nice shots. So he had a really nice pull-up shot on the inside of the arc, and then he was just, banging shots from the outside. 4 of 10 from 3. That's really nice to see. Jamison Battle played 33 minutes, had a really solid game. Very, very happy that the Toronto Raptors were able to find this guy. And last up off of the bench, I thought he had an okay night. Colin Castleton, he's continuing his solid backup play. 7 points on 2 of 4 shooting. He was 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 turnover, and doing just a lot of positive things. He's a pretty good passer. He had a couple of very nice finds. He plays decent defense around the rim. He's a pretty good rebounder. When he gets into the paint, he has pretty good touch on his layups. He gets blocked a little bit, and he's not like a superstar or anything, but he looks like he is, potentially a rotation player or a third string big, just a guy that I would not mind seeing back next season. And that was the game. The Toronto Raptors kept it close the whole game. Darko Rajakovic was able to avoid the tanking accusations, so there were a bunch of posts on social media. God, people are so sensitive about tanking, and people were whining and bitching and moaning about the rotations for the Raptors. Oh, they're not playing Scotty Barnes or Jakob Poeltl or Emmanuel Quickley in the fourth quarter. Someone said that before Darko put them back in at the end of the game. And they made it close again. So Darko seems to be kind of playing on the knife's edge here with his rotations, trying to keep the accusations of tanking away while at the same time securing the loss. He was able to do that. I thought it was an impressive performance, and hopefully all the games can be like this, where, they put in a really good effort. You get to see something exciting while at the same time, not ruining their draft odds this season. So thumbs up for me. Next up, the Toronto Raptors play one of their tank competitors, the San Antonio Spurs. And the Spurs have been, win one, lose one, win one, lose one the past couple of games. Of course, Victor Wembanyama is out for the season. De'Aaron Fox is out for the season. And they are playing them at home. So this is a toss-up. I could see the Raptors winning this game. I think that the Toronto Raptors, it seems as though they have committed to the tank and they will do what is necessary to lose games at this point in the season. And the Spurs are not that bad, even though they are missing some of their top players. They've got some good youngsters. Chris Paul, the wily old vet, he's still around. I think it should be a competitive game. I hope the Raptors are able to make it exciting, but at the end of the day, it is really all about draft positioning at this point, so you know what that means. In any case, that is the episode. Let me know what you think of my second round targets and guys that you want to see drop in this year's draft to where the Raptors are going to be picking in the second round, because it's always interesting for me to hear what you guys have to say. I love talking to Raptors fans. We are the best. Love hearing your comments. Love answering your questions. All that good stuff. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, because that really helps the channel grow, helps the algorithm know to put this content out in front of other Raptors fans such as yourself. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.